So, time, right? Where did we stop last time? Time is a flat circle. What it means is it is never an actual true linear movement because it's not like one dimensional. Time doesn't travel in a single line. And the concept behind it is more like what stops me from existing, from being born 5,000 years ago? Just because right now, like as we get older, doesn't necessarily mean like that we're going to exist in this. All right, so I have to explain it in a way that doesn't offend anyone. But I was born in this era, right? What could have stopped me from being born in another era? And if that was to happen, am I actually born in the past? Because technically, this is the future. No, I was born at a point in time, past, future. They're irrelevant once I am actually born. And once you're born, you're kind of have to go with the flow of things. But then that got me thinking because that means if I am right in this era and I'm looking and I'm just not looking behind me, right? Because I'm considering my past. But if I'm considering like a different angle to look at where time could be, and ideally the best way I would consider it is this. It's more of a butterfly effect kind of thing. The whole world is kind of moving in a certain direction and it's influenced one way. Like World War II probably moved us in a certain like direction towards something. World War I kind of like if the World War I didn't happen, how would the world look like, right? So you'd imagine things would have continued the way they were. But so the basically the happening of that was big enough for us to kind of like maybe shift, or we won't feel the shift. It just goes like, no, now that this is happening, we can't reach this future anymore, this point in time anymore. But this becomes a more approachable thing. It makes more sense. And as you start looking to that, you can realize like what if people right now stop kind of like building modern buildings and start building older buildings? Does it mean we regress to the past, or does that just mean that we started basically going to that point in time? Even though the numbers that we use are always consistently moving upwards. What if we can literally right now, and some people try to do that, some people literally kind of like live in certain like styles. Some people live dressed like they were in the 1960s. So fucking what? That's their vibe, maybe. And some people like are dressed in clothes that probably won't exist for another 50 years. That's their style. That's when they want to exist. They want to exist in a time when that is a thing. So anyway, I started thinking about it. I started realizing that there's no future that's specific, and there's no past that's actual. Because every single time you kind of like find yourself somewhere, you always at one point redirected to that point in time. If I were to be like comparing it to something more scientific, it's the multiple universe theory, but there is no multiple universe. There's literally like you exist within your own space. And the bigger your space, the more of an effect you have on the overall space. And ultimately, life is moving on its own, but we can't, like, for example, forsake the fact that Mark Zuckerberg's effect on the world that we know right now has shifted us into whatever is happening. Because, like, the existence of Facebook, basically, Facebook was Web 2. They're the ones who created the internet in a different way. At first, everything was static, it was just pages. and the existence of Facebook and the interaction of social media, they're the ones that kind of like elevated everything. Fuck, in 2012, 2000, like they're the ones who kind of like developed all the technologies that support today's internet. And in 2008, if it wasn't for the guy that did the Satoshi Nakamoto or whoever his name was, that built the actual Bitcoin, if it wasn't for Jeff Bezos, if it wasn't for Elon Musk, if it wasn't for Einstein, if it wasn't for Richard Feynman, Neil deGrasse Tyson, if it wasn't for Newton, Shakespeare, like each one of these figures at a point in time were strong enough to create some form of shift where the future was painted by their own color and died in their own sense of creation and reflection, and or just, I don't want to say composing, no, sense of just, this is a point in time they wanted to go towards. And they found themselves where they are. They basically took steps to how they wanted to see themselves. And the world followed suit based on how strongly they actually impacted it. And so, from a times perspective, the relevance of that is the fact that our future and our past are completely the same. It means at any point in time, we could always find ourselves. At one point in the early 50s, they were scared there's going to be a nuclear war and the whole earth would kind of like be destroyed. But that never happened. But if it happens now, then did we go to that point in time when it could happen, when it would have happened? And we probably dodged that as a species. All of us went in a different direction towards the 60s, 70s, and kind of like entered Cold War state. And if we do right now a nuclear fucking, if we right now become a nuclear, create a World War III, which is nuclear, then we're going back to that point in time and starting from there and slowly, basically. So the reset button that we have are great catastrophes and calamities because we actually are able to grow. Basically, we take our time growing and evolving into different points in time. But if there is an actual true calamity, like an asteroid, that I mean, I heard there's an asteroid that's supposed to hit like Earth in the year 2120 or between 2120 and 2150. That calamity, for example, kind of like resets an asteroid that basically shakes oceans, cracks the Earth, volcanoes erupt, tsunamis, all kinds of shit, man. We're very delicately balanced. That will reset us to an actual point in time, period. And it's not a point in our past. And it's not really our future. It's just like we were traveling on this circle that is time. And when this happened, it's the shortest direction to get to this one. And then basically what we're doing is we're exploring, and then maybe we'll learn from that, and instead of going towards it, we go somewhere else. But it can't be helped. Because with enough generations into the future, we're going to forget stuff that we did, and we're going to use whatever's in front of us when it comes to like understanding society, economy, all that stuff. We're going to use whatever is in front of us and start slowly, basically rebuilding towards something else. And I feel like a few people have actually kind of mastered that, and over the years were able to tell a story and to pass down certain wisdom of how we could create our own future. But it can only be done if the whole world is moving in our way. Because future is no longer pertaining to time, it's pertaining to us individually existing in time. Because my movement is the direction. And that is where there's something in the future and something that I have passed. Something that will pass in the future because it's on the actual line that I'm targeting, and something that I have passed, not past, something that I have passed, like past this. So there's no point going back to it. And it all depends on what I want to create. I could go back to it if I want. Nobody tells me what to do. But it's all about what you want to create. And the more prominent an actual future you want to create, the more prominent a reality you want to create, the more people are going to basically be a part of it and jump on top of it and just like engage with it. There are things that are too big that shift the world, and there are things that are just like shift it slowly, and there are things that have no impact at all. They just exist in time. That is it. Imagine being able to shift the direction of time. And thinking about it is not like a bending of reality, but it's more like, we're approaching a different reality that includes things that I'm creative about or I want to include in the world. I bet that's how people that want to change something feel, because they're always looking at something and going like, at a certain point in time, it's going to look like this. And if we don't interact with it, its natural process will look like this certain point in time. And then basically everything in between. Oh, I really wish somebody would actually watch these things and go like, what the fuck's this guy talking about? And maybe I'll be able to like get some feedback. But hey, why the fuck not, man? I think this is video number 71.